Parliament has approved the $250 million loan from the World Bank, which it had previously rejected. And it had rejected this loan simply because they saw that there was embedded within it, hidden within that particular loan, a $90 million consultancy fee. And this consultancy fee, of course, is supposed to go to the World Bank consultants, which come from the West and the United States, basically, where these loans are coming from. There has been a trend recently of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, of course, returning to the African continent. And we have done an extensive analysis on these subjects. What are they doing basically on the African continent? One would say that they are encouraging even corruption on the African continent, looking at the fact that they are dispensing out this free money to the ruling class in Africa without accountability. And before even they have accounted for the previous money, they come and extend another money. We have seen this, that the World Bank was recently, its representatives were even on the media, in the local media platforms, trying to force, trying to coerce, they trying to blackmail the parliament and saying that they have the money and, it is only the Ghanaian parliament which should, approve the money because the money is there. So this basically means that they are bribing out our officials and heads of state and leaders and of course parliamentarians who are the members of parliament to approve these loans, which are not even beneficial to the African continent. And actually, most of these loans, they are concentrated in countries which don't need them. There is countries which are really badly off on the African continent and need these loans to do real work. But the West, as we know, is there to sabotage Africa's progress, does not want these loans to perform anything productive on the African continent. Let us look at the article, what it is saying, which has come out recently, to talk about this particular subject. Now, the article is saying that Parliament has approved the $250 million, $1 million loan. Parliament has approved the $250 million agreement from the World Bank to support the Ghana Energy Sector Recovery Program. Ghana is one of those countries which are not really, suffering from energy problems, and almost 90% of the people have access to electricity. That is, contrary to when you compare to other African countries. If you compare this to other African countries like, Sierra Leone, which don't have access to electricity, up to 90% of the people don't have access to electricity, and they have access to electricity only 10% who actually live in Freetown. So you can see that these 300 million or 500 million, 250 million, it is Sierra Leone, countries like Sierra Leone which need this money, countries like Benin, countries like Togo, where our people don't have access to electricity. But these countries, because they are pushing, but these companies and these banks, because they are pushing neo-colonial objectives, they don't care about who needs the resources. They care about propaganda and using this propaganda and exploitation and exploitative activities and tactics to just exploit Africans and take resources from them, and of course use this propaganda as if they have made a big contribution. The facility which was previously disapproved before the parliament, before the parliamentary recess, was a key reason for the recall of parliament for a 2-day emergency sitting. The loan, so what we are seeing is that the government, the sitting government of President Nana Addo and the NPP government, which is a neo-colonial government, of course we know this very well, decided to bring back the bill in parliament, decided to bring back the conversation in parliament. And of course, because I think they are timing when they have the majority so that they can pass the loan and they will be able to go and misuse this particular money. And of course, burden the population with the huge debt burdens, because it is the population which is paying all these taxes through the increased taxes on electricity, increased taxes on water, increased taxes on everything. Yet they are mismanaging all these loans and they are not scrutinizing them. And this is what is, terrifying. The loan they claim that the loan is intended to bolster efforts in stabilizing and revitalizing Ghana's energy sector. This is the claim which they did. Addressing long-standing financial challenges and ensuring reliable power supply of electricity to both households and businesses across the country. This is the claim. Now, during the proceedings, the minority initially expressed strong reservations, particularly about a 90 million consultancy fee embedded within the loan agreement. They argued that the fee was exorbitant and required further scrutiny before approval, because if it was granted, it would affect the country, and it could, they needed to check it and see. Now, despite these objections, the loan facility was ultimately approved, with the majority emphasizing the urgent need to fund these critical issues in the energy sector. They highlighted that the recovery program is essential for sustaining the energy supply, reducing debt, and promoting economic growth. So this is a big problem that we are facing as the African continent. Now, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have been coming back, of course, strongly on the African continent. And this is simply because for the last 20 years, since 2000, we have been having a strong relationship with China. And that relationship has led to the construction of a lot of infrastructure, including roads and railway infrastructure across the African continent, not only in one country. So we had growth. We had tremendous growth on the African continent. And these numbers, where we have been experiencing growth, and of course we have been hearing in the media platforms, various media platforms, people have been saying, Africa rising, Africa rising. But today we don't hear it anymore. Why? Simply because the African economies now have started slowing down. And of course they are slowing down because China is also slowing down, since our growth has been attached, and dependent on the the Chinese economy. So the International Monetary Fund looks like is using this opportunity to come to Africa and harvest the growth that has been happening. Just like what they did in the 70s when they came with the structural adjustments. What they did basically with the structural adjustments is that Africa was growing from the 60s all the way to the 70s, because our heads of state were investing in our properties and our resources on the African continent in infrastructure. So there was growth, there was tremendous growth. Now they removed these leaders and they came and they harvested all the economies. And how do they harvest these economies? Of course, they give these loans which don't come in many cases, and these loans which have 90 million, like they are giving 250 million. 90 million is almost close to a half of the money. Almost 50% of the money is consultants and goes to the World Bank itself. It doesn't come to the African continent. Now, at the end of the day, we have to pay interest. We have to pay back the principal amount and also pay the interest on these particular loans. And that's how they harvest our economy. So the poor people, they have to pay more taxes. The taxes are increased. They use their neo-colonial partners on the continent to increase the taxes on the people. And the people have to pay taxes. And these taxes now, which will make people suffer and suffer and suffer to pay for the World Bank, to pay for the white people in Washington and Brussels and Paris to live exorbitant and extravagant lives. And of course, that's how the United States and Europe have been harvesting our economies. And how they harvested, that's how they harvested the economies, African economies, in the 1970s after overthrowing our heads of state, who were building a strong economies. And this is what is happening even today, because we have been growing all this time with the help of China, all the infrastructure which they have helped us to build. Now the West sees that they have mismanaged their economies in Washington, in European capitals. Now they are coming back to the African continent to harvest the economies of the African continent, of course, which is very unfortunate. But then, of course, the task is upon us, the next generation of leaders, that we have now to put up a fight. We have to fight for the African continent. We have to fight for what belongs to the African continent. And that means declaring a war on the neo-colonial governments which we have on the continent. These are our enemies, the colonialists, and then the neo-colonial governments on the African continent. Those are the enemies to the African people all over the African continent. So once we understand this, then we should be discussing, we should start discussing to find a solution to this problem. Just like the Nkrumahs themselves found a solution to the colonial administrations which were engulfing the continent. So we have also to find in our generation a solution to this problem. And that is it. My name is Kwame Gonza. The channel is called Connect Africa and Africa Reimagined. Please like the channel, subscribe to our platform, and also share it with others. Don't forget to support the channel through our PayPal account and also the super chat if you can. We want to thank you once again, and we will talk to you later. But what do you think? Please put that in the comment section. What do you think that we should do? How do you think we should handle this particular situation? Please put that in the comment section, and we will come and continue to have a discussion about this particular subject. Thank you so much, and peace to you all. God bless you.